toss. So this video has been like a long time coming. I have wanted to make a video. It's been so long, but I always just feel very like uninspired, I guess, because the last two videos I did on this channel were Buffy videos, and I really have been wanting to do a Buffy video or Buffy videos for so long, but I tried to do the whole, you know, like watching every episode again, taking notes on those episodes, and like including clips from the show, which you also then have to edit in and overlay with everything, and it was just becoming very time consuming and like a lot of work, and they were becoming like these mega like iMovie files too, because yeah, I use iMovie. Yeah. They were becoming huge, and it just wasn't becoming fun, and like at the end of the day, this channel is for fun and giggles more than anything. It's not like I have a job outside of this that I work, you know, 12 months out of the year I work 40 hours, and then 3 months out of that year I work usually even more than 40 hours. So the last thing I'm thinking of sometimes when I get home is like, can't wait to do some more work. It's gonna be so fun. So the moment that editing stops becoming fun, I have to just stop, because then it's like, this isn't fun anymore. But I did a video like this almost 3 years ago about Degrassi, which lo and behold, I kind of want to do another Degrassi video, but I'm not even sure what I would do it about. I was so ready to make another one when they announced the reboot on HBO Max, but then that was canceled, so there went my video idea too. But I don't know, I kind of want to do something Degrassi related, but I don't even know what I would do at this point. My last video that I did, which was this style of video, which I'll explain in a second, was already so in depth. I go back and rewatch that video all the time. I'm like, wow, she's so funny, she's so smart, she's so right. But basically, Fine Wine and Spoiled Milk series here. We're gonna make it a series, and I'm gonna probably post videos every 4 years or something, knowing me, where I take a TV show that I love and adore so much, and I'll talk about the good aspects of it and the bad aspects of it and go in depth with it. And I think that's a bit easier to do because I don't have to use clips or really edit too much, which is a lifesaver, and I still get to yap about something I love, which is basically what I was doing in my last two Buffy videos. I was yapping. I wasn't too proud of the first one. I thought it was pretty low quality, but I actually really liked my second Buffy video. So there were so many things that I actually covered already kind of in that video that I'm gonna just briefly recover here. But yeah, basically the Fine Wine and Spoiled Milk, you have two categories. You have your fine wine and your spoiled milk. Spoiled milk is the bad parts that have actually probably not aged well 9 out of 10 times. Or even if they have aged well, I just don't like them, and I'm gonna fucking speak my truth. Versus fine wine is stuff that has aged well, or to me are personally really good. I did try to be objective about my opinions, so I am gonna include a secret category, intermission, here, but we'll get to that later when we get to it, and I'll explain it because I think it's so fun. But anyway, I'm gonna, for the most part, just kind of be going back and forth. There's no like, these aren't in a set order. It's not like just because I put you first that you're least important, or I put you last you're most important. Sorta. I mean, I will say I did save some of the absolute worst for last, and I saved my personal favorite for last. So in a way, it's kind of in order, but the first few are not in order. They're literally just me randomly talking shit. So we're gonna start with the first, Spoiled Milk, which we're really starting heavy and strong right off the gate, because my first thing is the racist caricatures and just the treatment of race within Buffy as a whole. If you've seen Buffy or know anything about it, or if you don't, I'll explain it very briefly. You know, it's a show about a young 16-year-old girl who finds out, well, she found out when she was 15, but she's a young 16-year-old girl who finds out that she is the vampire slayer, and it's kind of her duty and her job that she never asked for, to take care of humanity in a way, from vampires. And she lives in Sunnydale, which just has an inordinate amount of supernatural activity going on, because it's placed like directly on top of a hellmouth, basically. But yeah, she makes friends, which we call the Scooby Gang, full of total brands of different kinds of characters. You have like the OGs, like Xander, her guy best friend. We will get to him. We have Willow, witch best friend, becomes a witch as the show goes on. We have like, they're basically the two OGs. Everyone else comes and goes for the most part. Like you have Anya, you have Spike in a way. I would consider him part of the Scooby Gang in the later seasons. You have Tara, we'll get to her. Just a whole bunch of different characters. Seth Green's character, whose name I can't remember right now. Yeah, Charisma Carpenter's character, of course, Cordelia Chase. So that's the main premise of the show. She makes these friends. She also has a guardian, kind of a watcher, called Giles, who's the school librarian initially when they meet, and it's kind of his job to mentor her. We'll get to him as well. And that's just the basic premise. Her slaying and killing vampires and these big villains appearing like every season. So back to the spoiled milk section. So every character that I just mentioned is white. And like there's nothing inherently wrong with having a show full of mostly white people, I guess, whatever. Just like there's nothing wrong if like you have a show full of all black people or all Hispanic people. Like I don't watch On My Block and think, damn, I really wish that we had some white representation right now. Or like I'm not watching, you know, like you can have shows that are predominantly, you know, full of people of all of one race, whatever. The issue is that when the other races, you know, like Hispanics, black people, Asian people, when they are on your show, then when you just kind of do caricatures that feel kind of lifeless and feel kind of racist and make offhand comments that I'm sure in the 90s and early 2000s probably wasn't offensive on a wide mainstream scale, but I don't know, just feel icky the more that they've aged. And that's one thing I will give, or not give, to the show, but that I will call out about the show, is that it did come out at a different time. I hate when people say that it was a different time, but it was a different time, only in the context that I don't think these issues would have been so widespread. Not that they wouldn't have existed, because I don't think every single person would have been okay with the portrayal of black characters, especially in Buffy in the 90s or 2000s. Like I can't imagine being a black person and then like watching those and being like, oh, okay, so this is how you kind of see us, I guess. But just because something wasn't, like I said, mainstream, didn't mean that people weren't potentially offended by it. But at the same time, it wasn't as big of an issue. I think it's become more of an issue now. And there are two or three examples I can really think of. I saw online some people were also talking about like the Chinese, the Asian Slayer that they had, and that also felt kind of like icky, like in the episode where Spike is killing all the Slayers, but whatever. The two main ones, or I guess, yeah, two main ones and very minor one I want to talk about. Why is my mom calling me? Anyway, she just called me to let me know she was at the new Primark store that opened up in Orlando and that there was a whole bunch of Stitch stuff. So that's cool of her, I guess. So the racist caricatures. So two big ones, obviously, unfortunately, have to be black. First, you have Kendra. So Buffy like kind of dies momentarily at the season 1 finale. We'll get to the finales as well later on in this video. But she momentarily dies, and when a Slayer dies, a new Slayer takes over. And because she was technically dead for like a second or two, a new Slayer was born. Or not born, made, shall I say. And it ended up being Kendra, who is of Jamaican descent? I don't know. And they just treat that character so weird. I don't know how to explain it. It feels racist. It feels like she's, you know, she's played by an actress, Bianca, I believe, who like literally never ages. She's beautiful. And she does not have an accent of any sort. She just speaks, you know, like herself, like an American, if you will. Well, not like an American, but like a person who was born in America and has no accent. That's how she speaks. But yet they decided to give her that kind of accent. And I'm sure since she was like not like a super well-established actress at the time or anything, if you get that kind of role, you're gonna do it and, you know, do the little dance they expect you to do, play into your race card for the role. And it just felt icky. I don't know, like it just feels like they make her seem kind of like almost like she is from a society and from a culture, because they do go into how her society and her culture sees slayers, which is a whole nother discussion in and of itself that I discussed in season 2 about how it makes literally no fucking sense. But anyway, she's from a society that kind of, to Buffy and I guess therefore to the audience, is supposed to seem as kind of, is primordial the right word for it, like archaic, like incorrect, and it's probably obviously like a culturally black predominant, you know, kind of culture, like a predominantly black culture is what I'm trying to say. I can't speak, but yeah, it just felt weird. The accent was a choice that they did make her do. It's not like she went in there, she was like, I think that she should have this kind of voice, and it was a choice. But even more of a choice was the season 4 finale, which is actually, I think, the only finale I really don't like. And in that one, you meet who the first Slayer is, and once again, she's like potentially hinted to be of like African descent of some sort, but she's treated like again, like primeval, like a barbarian, like a caveman. And a comment, very iconic, in terms of how infamous it's kind of become, makes a comment about like her hair, which is like put in braids and stuff, and just weird behavior when it comes to black characters. Like obviously not every black character, because I feel like the male black characters, the whooping like 2 of them that there were, they also had their racist stereotypes, especially like Mr. Trick and stuff, but it was like the women for some reason were treated in a whole different way, and it was like they were seen as lesser than, or as like barbarians truly, and it was just a weird choice. And the last thing I'm going to mention about that is also Inca Mummy Girl as a Hispanic. This one is also kind of like, what? Because we have a character potentially of South American or Mexican descent, I don't know, who is a mummy. She was an Incan princess back in the day, and she's a mummy now, but she is seen as like this seductive, kind of like beautiful man-eater, quite literally. And I don't know, it also felt kind of icky. Like we barely got Hispanic representation in the show, and when we do, it's this like, there's a bit of a stereotype as well with Hispanic women especially, and like being seductresses and whatnot, and it felt like playing into that too. So I don't know, just a weird thing, like the lack of any main character POCs, which you are not required to do that, but still weird that it happened, you know? And then the times that you did show race or different races, the fact that it was always like with a slight tinge of weirdness to it, it's just kind of weird behavior in my opinion, and something that definitely hasn't aged well. But I also am not like too upset about it, nor do I think it detracts too much from the show. Like the character of Kendra, you barely see her. The first Slayer you see for that one episode. Inca Mummy Girl is one episode. The Chinese, potentially, I'm assuming she's Chinese because it seems like China. The Chinese Slayer who Spike killed, we see her for literally one episode as well. So nothing of this is like inherently detracting from the show or anything. It's just, like I repeat, weird that it happened. But we'll get to probably, you know, weird stuff that happened in the show as we go on. Then we have a very quick spoiled milk. I just needed to include it because I thought it was really interesting, and I think as someone who loves television a lot, or I guess I used to love television a lot more than I do now, but just loves media as a whole, and I'm a media consumption girly at my core, I find it very interesting about HD remasters, you know, because originally when Buffy was filmed, it was filmed in the late 90s, early 2000s. So it was not meant to be seen on a screen like, let me see if I can move my screen over. It was not meant to be seen on a screen like this, right? It wasn't. It was meant to be seen on like a small box TV, probably like they used to have back in the day. You know, they had like VHS tapes you could put directly into them. Like, you know the ones I'm talking about. That's probably how it was meant to be seen, or at the most maybe like a 32-inch maybe, or like a 20-something inch. It was not meant to be seen on 75, 85, like 95, however big you get. But as you know, you modernize and you keep going on, people always want to do remasters, like HD remasters of older shows, so you can see it in better quality. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, because yeah, sometimes I don't want to be watching a show on my nice little, you know, 58 TV and watching a square box. I have, because I own a very extensive DVD collection, and I like to buy like DVDs from when they came out. I usually just give them at Goodwill. I don't purposely seek out like HD remasters or anything. So if a movie that I love was made a long time ago and it's a square box, then I will be watching it as a square box format, and that's okay with me. If there are lines on my screen, that's okay with me, because at the end of the day, I'm still seeing the media the way it was meant to be seen. And if there is an HD remaster of it that's really good, then I'll watch that, probably, whatever, like on streaming. But I don't like need it, nor am I actively going out and seeking it. Because the issue with trying to remaster that is that you do have to put a lot of care into it, and unfortunately, whoever did the Buffy HD remaster did not care and did not put a lot of attention or care into it. Because let's say that you film a show like this, right? That's just how it's shown to you, but the actual cameras that were used to film it like that were obviously a bit bigger, because cameras haven't actually changed that much. I'm assuming from the 90s to now. I'm sure they changed quite a bit, but in terms of how you film it, it was still filmed the way you would see like a widescreen movie now, which is why you're able to have that kind of HD remaster with a wider screen. It's because when they originally filmed it like that, it did have a wider screen, right? They just cut it out and edited it to fit the TV format later on in post-production, I guess. Or so I've been told. If I'm wrong, somebody tell me. But the problem is that because the show was created keeping in mind that it was going to be cut, you were able to have really great shot compositions that were very centered or very like zoomed in, close in shots in the original TV format. But when you move that over to a widescreen format where it wasn't meant to ever really be seen like that, if you're not careful with it, you are going to end up with shots that look fucking weird. Like you might see like a mic popping in from the top, or you might see something on the corner that you weren't originally supposed to see because it was always meant to be cut out. And that's a lot of what happened in the Buffy HD remaster, is you had a lot of the original shot composition completely lost. And not only lost, but whoever was in charge of doing the remaster clearly didn't care or thought anyone would notice or care that the shots were no longer good. Like there are moments where you can truly see a crew there, or things that you're not supposed to be seeing, or shots that were once perfectly symmetrical within the, you know, the format they were filmed in, now look fucking weird because then it's in a widescreen. So that's number one. Number two is also the coloring is really off. Specifically, I really think that everyone who is interested in this or cares at all should watch Passion of the Nerds video about this. This is how I feel like I, and probably a lot of other people, learned about all the issues with the HD remaster, like truly, and kind of he went really in depth with it in a way that I'm not going to, because he's much more educated on the topic than me. But yeah, I really recommend Passion of the Nerds video. It's just one of those things that unfortunately, like, I don't know why it was done. Like, I don't know if they just didn't think that people cared about Buffy, and so, I don't know, no one was even gonna watch the HD remaster. Like, I don't know. It's one of the most beloved shows, I feel like, and it might not be as culturally significant as it was back when it came out, but it's still really beloved. It has like a really big cult following to this day. So I don't know why you thought that demographic of fans and people would not care that you then released like a horrendous HD remaster that literally has like no attention to care or detail when it comes to coloring, shot composition, anything of the like, you know? Then we have my next spoiled milk. This might seem like a negative video so far, but I promise after this I'm actually going to get into a fine wine section, and it's going to be a pretty good one in my opinion. So the next spoiled milk is season 7. I had to say it. I tried my best to look at all 7 seasons of the show and condense which I thought was like the best aged and which was the worst age, which is kind of the whole point of this. So not like what's my favorite, but what has aged horribly in every aspect and what has aged good and for what reasons. So Season 7 has aged horribly. Ugh, it sucks. It literally sucks. Like when you do a Buffy rewatch, the finale is actually really good. The series finale on season 7 is really good, although I have my qualms with it, which I will go on a mini rant here about. Even though it's good, I literally feel like I wish I could just skip all the episodes that happened before it for the most part. Like there were some solid episodes in season 7, and I love the Spike and Buffy relationship developing. We are gonna get to them, guys. We will get to them. But overall, the season fucking sucks. And I'm gonna kind of go into why. So number one is the lack of like Scooby Gang core, basically, especially after season 6 ended in a way, which again, I'll talk about season 6 in a little bit. Whew. I will definitely talk about season 6. Despite the core of season 6 ultimately being about the friendship between them, and especially the friendship between like Xander and Willow, which played such a key component in the season 6 finale, despite all of that, season 7 had a surprising amount of lack. I can't even speak today. I feel like I have 3 brain cells today. Anyway, season 7 basically lacked any emotional core when it came to this friendship. Like I feel like we barely saw them interact, and the times that we did, we're gonna talk about the times that we did. So that's number one. As much as I just like Xander and Willow sometimes, Scooby Gang interactions are still the core of the show. And it's a big part of what ties Buffy to her humanity and wanting to live. And, you know, not becoming the person that apparently her friends think she has become in season 7, which we'll talk about. Her friends are the ones who allow that, you know, that balance of power within her. And then they barely speak to her this season. They barely have any interactions, and it fucking blows. Especially because instead of having Scooby Gang interactions, we have the potentials. And I'm gonna put a corny joke here because I wrote it down in my notes, but the potentials had a lot of potential, but they fucking sucked. They wasted so much of season 7, like time-wise. They wasted so much of the time that could have been spent in Scooby Gang interactions or in literally anything else. I would have watched paint dry before I would sit through potential storylines, which sucks because I like Felicia Day. I'm a Critical Role fan, so I have to thank her for kind of allowing that to happen. I like Felicia Day, she's really cool, but damn, they fucking suck. And it's like I said, it had a cool concept and cool potential, because yeah, like what if it didn't just have to all be one person doing everything, and instead it could be these multitude of girls, and you start training them to potentially be slayers, which is also, again, kind of weird, since in season 2 I feel like Buffy was kind of getting onto Kendra's case about the fact that that's what her culture was basically doing, and yet here we are. I understand there's impending world-ending doom now that there wasn't prior, sort of, but interesting, you know? Anyway, but yeah, the potential's really cool concept, but they just didn't execute it well, and it kind of felt like Vanderpump Rules season 8, I believe it was, when they introduced a bunch of new people and expected me to give a single shit when I didn't feel emotionally attached to any of them. It felt weird. I didn't like it, and that also leads into Kennedy, which I'm not even gonna say anything. I'm just gonna say Kennedy, and if you've seen Buffy, you know. Then also, suddenly, for some reason in season 7, a lot of the characters that I dearly love started acting like fucking idiots or saying stupid shit just to say it. I don't know. Giles, I thought, was already kind of pissing me off when he left in season 6, right when Buffy probably needed him the most. That already pissed me off, but him coming back in season 7 and then, I don't know, acting to Buffy the way that he was not okay to me, because you left at that point. So to me, the whole like potential father figure mentor role kind of disappeared with it, in my opinion, when you fucking left me alone. And so I don't think you get to come back here and like get on to me about certain things that I'm doing or not doing. Like, you have no right or say in it anymore. And also, he was wrong a lot of the time anyway. So I didn't like that he was suddenly stupid as hell. And then this leads us into the big episode of season 7, the reason for the bane of my existence, the episode Empty Places. If you have seen Buffy, you know that Empty Places is the infamous episode where everybody in the Scooby Gang basically kicks Buffy out of her own house. When I tell you no scene in history of this show specifically has ever pissed me off more than that scene, because it was everybody. I mean, it was Anya. It was her sister. It was Giles. It was Faith, who had a lot of fucking nerve. It was Willow. It was Xander. It was all the potentials, who were fucking useless characters anyway. When they kicked her out of her own house, and especially, like I said, some of the things that they said, like, I love Anya. Anya's one of my favorite characters. So for her to say, you're not better than us just because you have your powers, you just got lucky. Ms. Girl, first of all, who are you talking to like that? That's number one. And number two, what the fuck are you even talking about? I got lucky. What are you talking about? I got lucky. After the life that Buffy has lived and the stuff she has gone through, for this power she never even wanted, but now after like 7 seasons she's finally accepting the responsibility of truly 100% and wanting to take like preventative steps in the future to avoid basically all the bullshit that she's had to go through for 7 seasons. And you're talking about you just got lucky? What in the hell are you talking about? And like I said, the fact that she even let them kick her out of her own house, I would have been like, y'all, respectfully, y'all need to get the hell out. Because to my understanding, they're not paying the fucking mortgage, right? Because in season 6, that's a huge plot line. They're not paying the fucking mortgage. Willow isn't. Tara, we'll get to. She's not, you know. They're not paying the fucking mortgage. So y'all need to get the hell out. Even at that point, I would have told Dawn, you can get the hell out too if you want to follow them. Because she's not paying the mortgage either. Buffy's the one working her ass off to maintain this house and maintain all of you and to help you all. And that's all she's done for 7 seasons. And you have the audacity. And like, Spike is the only one who sees common sense in this moment. And there's been a lot of talk about if other characters had been here, this would have never happened. Like, I don't think Tara would have ever done this, period. And I don't think Cordelia would have done it either. And yeah, I think it's very telling that they do this when Spike isn't there, because Spike would have never allowed this. He literally is the only person with fucking common sense in that episode besides Buffy, even though she is also verging on insanity by even letting herself get kicked out of her own house. But yeah, Spike is the only one with true common sense where he's like, she has done nothing but save your lives again and again. And this is how you do her. I fucking hate that episode. I hate a lot of season 7. It just feels negative. It feels like the vibe is so off. I don't like it whatsoever. And then my little rant I said I was gonna do, it's not really a rant, just a side note. So like I said, the finale was actually really good. I think Buffy has a really good finale. Like, it ends on a high note, but I don't like how the show doesn't let certain character deaths really sit with the audience. I do like that they're brave enough to kill people off, because I will always appreciate a show that is brave enough to kill off main characters when done right. We'll get to it. But let us sit with it, you know? Let us have a moment, for God's sake. Don't kill someone in the last 15-20 minutes and then the episode's over. Because and we never really got to grieve as an audience or really acknowledge that anything even happened or see any of the other characters' real true reactions because the episode's then over. I don't know, like, I didn't need anything big for the deaths that happened. Specifically, I just think the death that was handled the least best, spoilers, is Anya's death. It literally happens and then they never get her body. Xander finds out about it, has like a slight reaction, and the episode's like over like 2 minutes after. We never come back to it. And I'm like, I feel like Anya deserved a little bit better than that, to me, personal. I don't know. So yeah, I didn't love how it handled the deaths. I respect that it did it, and I do think the finale is strong overall. But I did not like the character deaths that we got in terms of not being able to actually process them. It was like, it happened, who fucking cares? We sure don't. We being the writers, I guess. and they just moved on. I didn't like that. So yeah, season 7, a whole damn mess. Lots of small little moments I like. Like I said, I like the Spike and Buffy development. I like some certain episodes, which I'll get to in my next endpoint. And I like the finale. But that is truly about it. This leads us into our first fine wine. It's going to be kind of like a mini like subsections in this category. So this is going to be titled award deserving episodes, and I'm so serious when I say award deserving episodes. So first up, we have what is probably one of the best episodes. I want to save the best for last, because if you know, you know. But one of the best episodes, Hush. This happens in season 4, which I will also get to season 4 in a moment. But it happens in season 4, and it's basically so unique because the first like 10 minutes of the episode are pretty normal, pretty average Buffy. You're like, okay, what's gonna happen? And then all of a sudden, the last like 30 minutes, for the most part, take place in complete silence because these supernatural monster creatures have taken over the town of Sunnydale, what's new, and they've made it so that nobody can speak, which is so interesting. So you have now like an episode where it's just like silent, but there's so much action going on, and I don't know, I just think it's done so brilliantly. I think the monsters are really creepy. Like the practical effects on them were really cool and nice. I thought they were really well done. That's number one. And also just the concept of having like an episode of television that is so the antithesis of what TV is now. Like it's kind of like known at this point because it's been leaked, that Netflix and like streaming services like that, they make shows purposely dumber on purpose now. Super cool, because they want TV content that you can just have on in the background while you scroll on your phone doing something else. They're not making, for the most part, obviously there's still showrunners and directors who do not align with this, and they will make something hard and complicated because that's what they want to do, and I always will appreciate that, and I will gravitate towards that over easy viewing any day. But as a whole, that cheap Netflix content that you see that they pump out that literally nobody's watching, but yet somehow people must be watching it because it gets renewed for another season or something, yeah, it's just, those are created for you to have on in the background while you do something else. But with an episode like Hush, you would not be able to do that in this modern like media landscape that we live in, because you need the full attention on the episode. It's completely silent. Everything is spoken through like written word on a whiteboard or through hand gestures, you know, so you need to give it your full attention, and I think that is so cool. Because I'm sure even back then, like imagine, you know, when you used to make television like that where you had 22 episodes throughout a whole, you know, network year, you needed to kind of sometimes make episodes that if some new watcher were just watching for the first time, they just happened to put on the show and they were like, interesting, they could dive into it. But imagine like the first episode you happen to stumble upon is Hush. It's not like the most user-friendly episode, you know, but it took a brave chance. It took a brave chance, and it paid off because it is one of the best episodes, and it truly deserved an award, I feel like, for sound design, because there's actually a difficulty in having that kind of complete utter silence be so eerie and creepy, and the horror elements in that episode were some of the strongest horror elements in the entire show. So I just think it's a really great episode. I don't think there's any other episode like that I can ever think of in television for any show. Personally, for me, only thing I got pretty close to was, I remember there was an episode of Switched at Birth. What a show. Maybe I'll make a video about that one day. There was a video of Switched at Birth, I think, that was kind of similar, but that had like a different context. It was less horror and more awareness to the issues of the show. Then you have, like I said, I already kind of spoke about this in my last video, so I won't get too much into it, but Passion/Innocence, which is a season 2, like kind of two-parter. They're not really a two-parter in the way Degrassi does them, but they might like as well be. They basically go hand in hand together. They are so excellent. I already ranted about these episodes for so long, but the whole of the episodes, like both of them, just play so brilliantly into the themes of the season, of season 2 specifically, of innocence and consequences and desire, and I think it does it so brilliantly. And also, I just think that the plot twist was really good. I don't think anyone saw that coming of what was gonna happen the moment that Angel reached true happiness. So just really great episodes. It also, I think, is the moment where the show went from not just a teen show, but to a bit more of a mature show. I think it should have been treated maturely even back then, but to be fair, it was also airing episodes like The Puppet Show before Passion/Innocence. So I can't fully blame people for maybe discrediting the show as just like a dumb girl teen show, supernatural shit, like look at the hot guys. But it really is so much more than that, and I think that these 2 episodes are the first real turning point where you see that, even more so than the season 1 finale, because now we have some real ass consequences that are going to follow us for the rest of the season and ultimately really the rest of the show. Then we have just some general episodes before I get to the big episode. Some general episodes that I think were really good, and I'm also gonna sneak one in there that you're not gonna expect and I want to talk about. So Tabula Rosa is really good. It's in season 6. It's the episode right after the musical episode, which, take a shot every time I say it, but we're gonna get to it. I love Tabula Rosa. I don't know if I necessarily want to call it like an award deserving television, but it's damn good television. I think it's one of my favorite episodes. I sometimes just go and rewatch that episode because I think it's so fun and just so campy, but also a really solid follow-up to the superb episode that came before it. Season 6 is a whole monster in and of itself that I have much to say about. So I just love Tabula Rosa. And then, like I said, season 7 was a dud overall, but like Conversations with Dead People is one of the strongest episodes. That's also on the caliber of like truly probably deserved an award for writing. It feels like it shouldn't be a Buffy episode. It feels like it's an episode of a whole different show. And I think those are some of Buffy's best episodes, when it feels like they can just do different genres. They don't have to be subjecting themselves to staying in one box only. And that's very much what Conversations with Dead People feels like. It's the kind of episode where you just kind of have to sit with it. It's literally, it kind of feels like the Before trilogy. If you know the Before trilogy, I love the Before trilogy. Just conversations with dead people. But it's really just an episode of conversations that progress the characters forward in a way that is just really organic and natural. And I'm sure it's probably boring to some people, but to me, I eat shit up like that. I literally love shit like that. Just give me conversations. I don't need plot or action. Just give me fucking conversations. And I thought the ending was really good too. It's just a really good episode. If you only watch anything in season 7, watch like the first few episodes, that episode, and the finale, and you'll be good. Then you have the Zeppo. I am a Zeppo supporter. It's a season 3 episode that is surprisingly a Xander focused episode. I repeat, we'll get to Xander. And so I should hate it, but I think it's actually really good. And it, again, just goes to show you that the show is genre defying, because it's able to also kind of make fun of itself and make fun of the genre that it itself lives within. Because my favorite moments of the Zeppo isn't just the whole Xander storyline of it all, which is actually really good and funny, but also just the background stuff. It kind of like reminds me of one of my favorite shows, Community. I could definitely do a video on Community, but there's that episode where Abed is barely in it, and you realize at the end it's because he has been helping this couple give birth. And if you rewatch the episode knowing that, you can see him in the background of so many shots actually assisting this pregnant woman give birth. Like, it's just really funny. I love when shows do stuff like that, the little funny stuff, and that's basically what the Zeppo is, kind of that vibe, because you'll have like Xander pop in randomly while Buffy and Angel are having like a dramatic monologue that is very on brand for them, but seeing it through the lens of like Xander now, it's kind of funny. You're not seeing it as like this dramatic moment, you're seeing it as kind of camp, kind of silly, like a soap opera. And I just think that's really funny, that diversion of tropes that they themselves feed into. So it's just kind of like that self-awareness I like. And then we have, before I get to the last good episode, award deserving episode, which the fact that I haven't mentioned this episode yet should make you know which one it's going to be. I do want to talk about one of my award deserving episodes, and that is Beer Bad. Did you guys hear that? I said Beer Bad. Sarah Zed has a really good video on the episode of Beer Bad, which I would highly recommend. I'm gonna link all the videos that I've mentioned. The first video you should definitely watch, because she's a huge Buffy fan. You should watch her Beer Bad video because it was really informative for me, and I think I already liked that episode. Like, I remember even the first time I saw Buffy, I never hated Beer Bad. I never had that extreme hatred for them and dislike that people had for that episode. I thought it was pretty fucking funny. Kind of like how I don't hate Bad Eggs. I don't love Bad Eggs. It's not my favorite, but I don't hate it. And I feel the same way about Beer Bad, but even more so. I really actually like Beer Bad. I think it's camp. I think it's funny. And when you know the behind the scenes stuff, like, please watch Sarah Zed's video. When you know the behind the scenes stuff, that makes it even 10 times more funnier when you realize what they were trying to do and how badly they didn't accomplish it. And the episode is just so fun. And oh my god, it's just fun. It's fun. It's a fun episode, and it's so silly. It's one of my favorites in the same way that, even though I mentioned it earlier as in a kind of negative way, I actually love The Puppet Show. The Puppet Show is one of my S tier videos, like episodes of season 1. If you see my season 1 Buffy video, I talk about The Puppet Show, and I think I put it at like A or S tier basically. Like, I love that episode so much. And that leads us into our last like actual, you know, award-deserving episode. And I'm gonna just say now, I will not be discussing Once More with Feeling here, because I have a whole section for Once More with Feeling, so that's why it's not on here. But that leaves us with the only other episode that you need to talk about when you talk about Buffy, and that is season 5's The Body. So in season 5, you start seeing Buffy's mother get like a disease. I think she had like a brain tumor or something, and initially, what I find so interesting is that initially the show is, you know, so full, because this is season 5, this is before season 6, you know, so most of the show is a lot of like supernatural issues. Like, a lot of the issues are supernatural based, and even when we use the supernatural for metaphors about, you know, reality, like adulthood and, you know, being a teenager and growing up and coming of age, even then you're using the supernatural to talk about these issues as metaphors. Rarely do we get like actual parts of the show where it's just real life issues that are completely out of your control, which sometimes can be even scarier than like vampires and whatnot. But with season 5, we got that with Joyce's brain tumor, and that's what leads us into The Body, which is the episode begins and Buffy gets home, and there's this brilliant, like, it's like a couple minutes. It's a couple minutes of a one-shot take of Sarah Michelle Gellar acting her ass off as she walks in and finds out that her mom is dead. And the episode title comes from the fact that when she calls like 911 and stuff, like, she's, you know, talking about it like, it's my mom, like, blah blah blah, and they're like, have you moved the body? Is the body whatever? And she's like, it's not the body, it's my mom. And that makes it so heartbreaking when at the end of that like very long, you know, intro, where it's a, like I said, just one big one take shot, at the very end she does end up referring to her mom as the body, and she realizes that at that moment, and she completely breaks down even more than she already has. And it is literally one of the hardest scenes to watch, and I think that if the day ever comes where if I ever lose my mom, which will never happen, she's never gonna die, she's actually immortal, I don't think I would ever be able to watch this episode. So it's just such a hard watch. The whole episode has little to no music. It's mostly just conversations again, and basically how it's shot is that every single commercial break cuts to like a new focus. So like, it starts with Buffy, then the next break, like after the commercial break and whatever, you go to Dawn, next commercial break, and it's like Willow, Xander, Anya, Tara, them. Then you get, you know, it just kind of process like that, like it's like little vignettes of people's emotions and feelings during this moment that they wouldn't have expected. And it's just a really hard episode to watch. There's really just no other way to say it. Like, it's one of the episodes that I don't love rewatching, because it does just make you cry. And the scene that will always, to me personally, gut me more than more than Sarah's acting, is Emma Caulfield's acting in the scene where Anya's talking about how she just doesn't get it, because she wouldn't get it. She's a demon turned human. She's never had to really deal with death before because she's like thousands of years old, right? So this is like the first death she's experiencing of someone she loved and cared about, and she just doesn't get it. And so she's like asking really obtrusive questions, just the way that Anya kind of is. And when Willow goes off on her, which fucking Willow pisses me off sometimes with her treatment of Anya, when Willow goes off on her, she then breaks down and she's like, I just don't get it. I don't get how someone could be here one day and now they're never going to be here ever again. And it's like this really emotional monologue, and then I literally just burst out crying. I can't watch that scene without bursting out crying. It's so sad. And I don't know, it's just truly one of the best episodes of television ever. Just gonna say that. I think it is definitely, without a doubt, the strongest Buffy episode. I think it deserved an award, genuinely, for acting, for directing, for writing. It deserved at least a nomination of some sort, because it is truly one of the best episodes of television, and it is just so well done. And when we want to, one of my main things in shows, I always talk about it when I do my Degrassi videos, is I love when shows do things that have long-term consequences, and The Body is a perfect example of that, because after that, Joyce is dead. Like, Buffy's mom is dead, and that plays a big role, especially in season 6. Less so in season 5, because The Body happened so towards the end of season 5, and there was so much other shit going on in season 5. Like, yeah, my mom is dead, but I also still need to literally save the world from this, like, god. So you see it more in season 6, which, or season 6 is its own monster discussion. But yeah, just one of the best episodes ever, and definitely the best episode of Buffy. Then we have our next fun one, which is season finales. So as I mentioned prior, the only season finale I really don't like is the season 4 finale. But that doesn't mean that every finale is built equally. So I will be only talking about 3 season finales, which I think are the strongest of the show. I am not including season 7 because that is a series finale and I already kind of discussed it. But I definitely, you know, don't think it would have made this list anyway, because the 3 season finales I'm going to talk about are so strong. I absolutely love them. So first we have, I don't know if these are really in order, but we have season 3. We're going to start there because I think it's probably the least memorable of the 2, or of the 3 I'm going to mention. So the season 3 finale is so good. Season 3 as a whole, I know I said like I wasn't going to make a fine wine section about my favorite season, and I'm not. But if I did, it would be this season, because I think season 3 is so solid. Season 3 and season 5 are the best. I mean, I don't think anyone can deny that to me. And season 3 is really the peak for me. I don't want to say it peaked, because there's still like some of the best episodes came after season 3, but it was just the peak of, I think, what Buffy really started off as. We'll put it that way, because after season 3 they leave high school anyway, and the season 3 finale is just so iconic. Like, the way that I get chills, like full body chills, when the entire student body like gets their weapons and starts fighting alongside Buffy. I love it. I love it. First of all, the mayor was a good villain, so seeing the accumulation and like the peak of his arc within the story was really good to see. Seeing the principal killed was satisfying, I'll say it, I'll admit it. And just like I said, it really was the community aspect of having all of her classmates help her after she's been basically fighting alone for 3 years. Not 3 years. Yeah, 3 years and 3 seasons. She's been fighting alone, helping them, doing everything for them, while they supposedly didn't know anything, which we find out anyway in season 3, and also one of the best episodes, the prom episode, that everyone in class did know that Buffy was saving their lives constantly, and they give her a class protector award, which I can't even think about that scene because it also makes me cry. So them all coming together in season 3, especially at the end with the prom episode, letting her know, we know you've been there for us and we thank you for everything that you do, and then actually joining forces with her and the Scoobies at the end of season 3 was so good and so iconic. And seeing the school basically destroyed and blown up, just kind of iconic behavior. I just think season 3 was such a solid season, and it ended in such a solid way. The show could have ended there, truly, if it needed to. If it got canceled, it could have ended there and it would have been perfection still. Then we lead into the season 5 finale. I want to save the best for last, to me. Season 5 kind of kills me sometimes, only because it's kind of crazy how they potentially filmed that finale in mind, like keeping in mind that it could be the series finale, because they were changing networks and they weren't sure if they were actually going to get to a new network or not, and they were going to get renewed, whatever. So they filmed season 5 knowing fully well it could have been an ending, and that kind of is a little crazy to me, because I think the older I've gotten, I think the less I like the main character dying trope as a finale. Because I remember, like, when I first watched The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, a show that I could talk about for how much it let me down. But I remember when I first watched it, I was a bit younger. Obviously, I was in college, and I didn't mind the season 4 finale ending up as the series finale. I was like, you know what, that's a good one. And the more I've sat with it, the more I actually fucking hate it. Because I think that's so cheap to have your main protagonist die as your finale. It just seems stupid. Doesn't mean it can't ever be well done, because there are definitely stories where it has been done like that and I have enjoyed it. But it's all about context. In fucking Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, it was stupid, and in here it would have been less stupid. It would have been less stupid. I'll keep that, you know, comparison there. It would have made more sense within Buffy, but it wouldn't have been satisfying, in my opinion, for her to just die as the finale. So that is my only real reason where I'm like, that's something I would not have liked. But thankfully it didn't end there, so I can just see it as a season finale, and as a season finale, it is fucking excellent. The fight, oh my god. The fight is so good. Season 5 as a whole had the best villain. Everyone knows that Glory, it's usually like Glory and the Mayor are high up there as like top villains when people talk about Buffy, which those two just happen to be my favorite seasons for some reason, right? So having Glory in the big showdown, it was actually a good fight. Like, I genuinely think the fight in the season 5 finale lasted longer than the season 7 like series finale fight. Cool. And it just was like so good. Like, everyone was utilized in the battle, everyone had their moment to shine in it, kind of. And then of course, like I said, it culminates with Buffy sacrificing herself for Dawn, which is someone who in literally the beginning of this season, she didn't even know who the fuck that was, because literally, who was she? She's just a fake person in a way, but she's also a part of Buffy, and in a way she is Buffy's sister, whether biologically she kind of isn't at the same time, but she kind of is, right? So her sacrificing herself for Dawn was kind of a big moment, and a big moment in her arc. And like I said, since it didn't end up being the series finale, I think it's actually really strong. It's just a season finale, because obviously they were going to bring her back. They weren't going to do a season 6 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer without Buffy. But I repeat, we'll get to season 6. And then finally, as promised, the best finale on the show, season 2 finale. There are a lot of people who still consider season 2 to be their absolute favorite season, and like, I would not deny those people, because I think season 2 is so good. Passion/Innocence, those award-winning episodes I mentioned earlier, happened in season 2, and it's truly when the show shifts tonally and becomes this like show that is not just any other teen show. But that season 2 finale, Buffy was never going to be able to beat it. Buffy went too hard too quick, too fast too furious, if you will, because what are you talking about? This is your season 2 finale out of a show with 7 seasons. The only gripe, I guess, with the season 2 finale is I genuinely think it would be one of the best season finales of ever, in like any television show ever, if it had just kept with it. And what I mean by that is, don't bring Angel back. Angel should have stayed dead. Or he wasn't dead, but he should have stayed in hell. He should have stayed in the hell dimension. That would have made it stronger. Or if you're gonna bring him back so much later. Like, bring him back in like a way later season, like season 5 or season 6. Having him come back a few episodes into season 3 kind of defeats some of the gravity of the season 2 finale, but it still doesn't detract from it. Nothing compares to the first time that you watch the season 2 finale. Absolutely nothing compares to it. Buffy and Spike teaming up to work together, actually for the first time, and not be enemies. Iconic. Beginning of something new. Or should I say, the start of something new. So that's crazy and iconic. And the whole Buffy needed to kill Angel thing. Many thoughts. Sandra being a pussy bitch, we will get to this scene, and not telling Buffy about what Willow told him to tell her. Super cool, super fun. The fight between Joyce and Buffy that to this day still creates so much discourse within the fandom. And then of course Buffy running away and not telling anyone. Well, she told her mom, but like not telling her friends really that she was leaving. And then just the episode ending with a Sarah McLachlan song playing while she is in a bus, a fucking Greyhound I guess, to get the hell out of Sunnydale, because she just had to kill the love of her life. Although debatable about that part, but she just had to kill her boyfriend. It just doesn't get better than that. It does not get better than the season 2 finale. Like, they really went all out for it. And like I said, the only thing that kills the season 2 finale is the fact that Angel does come back so quickly in season 3. But to be fair, at least, like, he never really died. He wasn't dead. He just went to a hell dimension because of his own stupid fucking actions. But it just goes into one of my gripes with the show, I guess. Which I won't talk about yet. I'll talk about it at the end. But the consequences for men versus women sometimes in the show, or shall I say for people versus Buffy, just kind of pisses me off sometimes. Anyway, the next fine wine before we get to our short intermission is season 6. I said I was going to talk about it. You probably didn't know how I was going to talk about it. Was I going to hate it? Was I going to love it? I love it. And this was hard, like I said, to pick the fine wine season, because I could talk for hours about season 3 and season 5. I love those seasons. But season 6 is what I think is like textbook definition of fine wine. Like when it first came out, you know, when it was first produced, I'm sure it was a good wine. Like I'm sure people liked it. I'm sure it tasted well. But as the show has progressed and as time has moved on, oh my god, that wine really, it tastes so much better. It's so much richer. There's like an extra flavor that wasn't there before. And that's why I picked season 6. So number 1 reason for why I think it's aged better, and like the main reason why it's really on this list, is the villains of this season. So for context, this season is one of the, I think, only seasons, because I think for season 7 we kind of went back to normal, I believe. Maybe not, I can't quote that 100%, but season 6 was at least the first season where Joss Whedon had the least amount of involvement. I believe that was for 2 reasons. Number 1 is that he spent an inordinate amount of time preparing the musical episode, which, buddy, it paid off. So he spent a lot of time truly putting care and attention into the musical episode, so he didn't have time to do a lot of the, I guess, the beginning of the season, right? Because he was so focused on that. And then also, I know that the show he made, Firefly, had been ordered at around that time, and so he was kind of starting to work on that and, like, I guess start, you know, thinking about what that's going to be, casting it, whatever. So he was busy with that as well. So from what I understand, I think he only worked on 1 or 2 episodes this season, truly. I don't even think he worked on the season finale, which he always worked on the season finales. So it was a different season, and therefore it has a different tone, because different people were mostly in charge of it. And I think it's because of that we got the villain that we did. I will be honest with you, because I don't think Joss Whedon has enough self-awareness to look in the mirror and realize that the villains of this season are just low-key him in a different form. Because this is the first season that doesn't have like supernatural villains on paper. Instead, they're just normal human men who fucking suck. And I mean that from the deepest pit of my heart. Like, these men suck, especially Warren. Like, at the end of the day, I can give Jonathan grace because we've known Jonathan for years before. And Andrew is funny enough that sure, whatever. But Warren has no redeeming qualities. He's a walking piece of fucking dumpster fire, and I hate that guy so much. And that's why it's so brilliant, because at the end of the day, these men, especially Warren, I would say, are basically just like modern day incels. They are 100% misogynistic. They hate women even though they claim to love women. They are very woe is me, I'm a nice guy knights, and in reality they're the complete opposite. They're literal scum, who will, like, I don't know, they were portrayed so brilliantly, I think, by these actors and by the writers who made them, like, originally they were kind of goofy. You could kind of laugh at their antics as they tried to, like, use an invisibility gun on Buffy or whatever, right? Stupid shit like that. But as the show continued, their antics went and became less goofy and became more dangerous. And you see that especially when Warren, in the episode where everything, I think, kind of shifts, where he finds a way, I don't remember how, to, like, mind control his ex-girlfriend who didn't want to be with him anymore because he's a fucking disgusting misogynistic pig. And he basically mind controls her to sexually assault her and rape her. And the show actually explicitly says that, because she eventually ends up getting out of the mind control and she's like, this is fucking rape, you fucking losers, you're going to jail. And then he kills her. He kills this woman who is his ex-girlfriend. I think that's the moment that the silly antics became a little too real, because I'm sure in, I think season 6 came out like 2001, 2002. I'm sure at that time it probably seemed crazy, foreign, unbelievable that any man would ever really be like that. That's why they were villains on a supernatural Buffy show, because it's supposed to be extreme. But unfortunately in 2024, it doesn't, 2024, in 2025, it doesn't seem so extreme anymore. It actually seems too real, and it seems like we've seen too many cases that are too similar to this. And so for that reason, I think season 6 is actually brilliant, because in having a villain that is not based in the supernatural, and not using the supernatural as like a metaphor for anything, but just having real humans who are fucking stupid and evil, ultimately created a villain trio, if you will, but really it's just Warren predominantly, that was absolutely evil. And one of the actual biggest fears after, like, that you can take away from the show, because I'm not scared that the master is gonna come over here and kill me, or that the mayor of my town is gonna end up being a huge fucking worm. No. I'm scared of men like Warren, and that's why I think as villains they work brilliantly, in my humble opinion. But yeah, season 6 overall, once you take just, you know, the trio out of the equation, is really just a strong season. Like, the morality of the season, I think, is what's so interesting, because you see our characters who we love so much, who we've gotten to know for the past 5 seasons, do things that are so questionable. I think this is the season that has the most amount of, like, just character moments, in terms of, like, the Scoobies having moments together, but not even just the Scoobies, it's also just even like other people outside of just the original 3 of, like, Xander, Willow, and Buffy. Like, you really see Buffy and Tara's relationship really, like, develop, and I really love that. I love their friendship so much. You see the dynamic between Buffy and Spike, as toxic as it is in season 6, play out, and it's just so well done. And like I said, the morality of it, it starts from the very beginning in season 6 all the way till the end. The morality of bringing your friend back to the dead because you assume for some reason that your friend is burning in hell with demons, when in reality she was in heaven very happy, and you plucked her out of that just to put her back in an earth that freaking blows. That's very interesting. Also, the morality of using magic, which I will say, the whole magic within Buffy is very double-edged sword because I actually don't love the drug addiction metaphor in season 6, especially when magic previously, when in context of Willow, had been used to represent queerness. It's a weird mix all of a sudden in season 6, and it's just kind of weird. I don't love it, but the morality of having that kind of power, like if you had the power to do absolutely anything you wanted at any time, you can literally like not compel people, she's not a vampire, but like you can just do a potion, a little spell to make people forget whatever you want them to forget. You can make people do whatever you want them to do. You can change your clothes all of a sudden. If you want to have a little outfit change, retouch your makeup, just a little spell. Wouldn't that be so convenient? But conveniency and the things that are convenient for us never are actually convenient, and they come with a price. And I think that's a very interesting philosophical kind of problem. And yeah, I just think season 6 is the deepest season, and it also just, the themes that it's touching on, which I have here, for me the themes are, number one, grief, because like I said, I think this is a season where you really see Buffy process not just that, yeah, her mom is dead, but also what that actually implicates her in, or implies, in terms of like, now she is the adult and you have to deal with being a big sister but also a kind of mother figure, and now you also have to figure out how to really be an adult because someone's got to pay the fucking mortgage because your friends are useless and they're not going to help you. Oop. Also the themes of depression, because Buffy is very much depressed, and who wouldn't be? If I was in heaven, living the time of my fucking life, like at peace finally for the first time in my life, and I was plucked out of that to come back here to a place that blows and sucks, and I have to now, on top of that, work and, like I said, be an adult in a way I didn't have to before because I have to take care of my family because I'm the only one left, basically. You gotta be kidding me. I would be depressed too. The shift from childhood to adulthood, like season 5 and 4 Buffy is still college Buffy in a way, and so you still have a little bit of that childhoodness, young adultness, if you will. In season 6 that's taken out completely, because Buffy is like, well, now college is a privilege, now I have to work instead, these dead-end jobs that I don't even like, which is just too relatable. So yeah, that shift from childhood to adulthood, which sometimes you're plunged into it the way that Buffy is, it just sucks. Also the acceptance of life, I think that's the ultimate, you know, season 6 theme. Buffy was depressed and dealing with all this grief, and she went from being utterly happy to utterly unhappy and not even wanting to live. That's one of the big things. You see it in Once More with Feeling, which we'll talk about. She doesn't want to live anymore. And so that acceptance that there are things to live for, and there are things to care about and to love, and there are reasons to stay, I think is a very touching and very done well, and I think resonates with me definitely a lot. I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people. If not now, then maybe at some point in your life or at some point in your past. I think season 6 is just the most mature season, and that's probably why it gets a lot of polarizing opinions, because there are people who probably don't like that tonal shift and don't like the darkness of season 6 and the grimness in a way. They prefer the earlier seasons that were definitely darker and a bit more mature still, like you see that with the shift in season 2, but were still inherently lighter than how dark season 6 became, especially by the end, which unfortunately we will speak about. And now we have a brief intermission. So I've probably been talking for a long time. I'm going to talk for a bit longer, but if you want to use this time to pause, grab some popcorn or something, or just keep it playing because you don't fucking care what I have to say anyway, do whatever you want. But our brief intermission is going to be something I might do for other videos like this. I don't know if I can think of things that would be like this, but Buffy is a very polarizing show. There were a lot of people who have very heavy opinions on one side or another, but I wanted to make like an intermission part for the things that I feel like don't deserve such polarizing opinions one way or another, especially in the negative. And we're going to call this the Nickelback Awards, or the Nickelback choices, if you will. Nickelback, coming from the band Nickelback, which I went to go see in concert like a year and a half ago. It was a great time. Look at this photograph. And everyone knows that they make pretty decent music. I would say pretty good music. But yet they are mass hated, or at least they were really mass hated for a long time there in like the 2000s and 2010s, where I feel like people were just overhating just to overhate, or bandwagon overhating. Because I feel like I was a bandwagon overhater. I never hated Nickelback that much, but you just kind of had to play into the whole like, oh, Nickelback is cringy thing. And that's what these next two things are. They're Nickelback. They don't deserve to be as hated as they are. They're actually kind of good. And I'm gonna talk about why. Number one is season 4. Listen. I think season 4 is still this, usually I consider it like the 3rd weakest season, because I don't think there's any bad season of Buffy, except for season 7. But there's no bad season of Buffy inherently, so I always just say, here are the best seasons and here are the least best. And I always put season 4 at like the 3rd or 2nd least best. Season 7 is always at the bottom, and then season 1 and 4 are like interchangeable for me depending on my mood. I just think season 4 gets hated on for a lot of reasons that are not valid. Number one is because of episodes like Beer Bad, which I already discussed. I think Beer Bad is an excellent episode and it's actually deserves like awards, so like I think you're wrong about that. Number two is that I guess people just found this season to be a little bit clunky, because it's the shift, it's, you know, the obligatory season that you get when you have a teen show and you decide to move on to college, which usually, I'm gonna be honest, sucks. I have rarely seen shows that do the shift to college and the show is still good. It's just not impossible. There are definitely other shows where that has happened, but usually the high school seasons are the better seasons of whatever respective show you're thinking of. And I can't say that for Buffy. I can't say that for Buffy. And I think that their transition season of season 4 is still really good and still keeps the heart of the earlier seasons, like seasons 1 through 3, and what you were used to, while still kind of getting you used to the fact that the show's going to be a little bit different now, and it is going to be a little bit more mature, which I really liked. I think it gets a lot of hate, but it has some of the most solid episodes. Like I said, Hush is in that episode. Is in that season, which, I'm sorry, but a season that has Hush automatically cannot be one of the worst seasons. I'm sorry, but it cannot. The only real downfall for season 4, in my opinion, is 2 things. 1, Riley. I will not say anything more. 2 is the overarching villain / the finale, which I already discussed. I don't like the finale for season 4, but the overarching villain blows. It literally blows so hard. People want to talk about how the trio aren't that good of villains. I've seen that tossed around a lot, although I feel like people are rethinking that more as time progresses. But yeah, people talk about the trio and whatnot, but I'm sorry, Adam sucked. That was a horrible villain. The initiative as a whole, the initiative was a waste of my time. That was the only parts I didn't like about season 4. The parts I actually liked about season 4 were the parts that focused on the college stuff and on, like, I love that ridiculous one of the first episodes where Buffy has a roommate and she thinks, I fucking hate this bitch. I don't like her. I don't want to live with her. And then you find out she's like an evil demon, because of course she is. But I love the silliness like that. I love Buffy getting her first crush / like after Angel, and then him being the most typical human male known on the planet. He does exactly what every man ever has ever done to any girl in college or high school or in adulthood. It just is what it is, and it's so real. Oh my god, I love it. I think season 4 gets much more hate than it deserves. I don't think it's the best season by any means, but I don't think it's the worst. I would even personally argue that genuinely season 1 is weaker than season 4 sometimes. Like I said, depending on my mood. Because season 1 didn't even have standouts like season 4 did. It was mostly just a really good season finale, a really good pilot, and like the puppet show, which only I like the puppet show. So sorry, but I think season 4 gets way much more hate than it deserves. Get off the bandwagon. If you genuinely hate it, whatever, stay on it. But let's please stop. And speaking of the bandwagon, that leads me to my Nickelback award number 2, which is Dawn Summers. I love Dawn, okay? I think she is very well acted by Michelle Trachtenberg. She was also so young. It's actually crazy how young the actress was when she was on the show. she just is such a beloved baby. Like, everything that people dislike about her, I like. Because ultimately, I also want to point out, I do like annoying characters. It's like a well-deserved or a well-earned skill of mine. I love bitches. I love annoying characters. I love characters that are so inherently usually disliked by fandoms. I don't know why. Maybe I do it to be a contrarian, or maybe it's because in a way I feel empathy, basic human empathy. Sorry. And I do feel empathy towards Dawn. People always want to say, well, why the fuck would I feel like this special empathy towards Dawn when Buffy has gone through way worse at her age? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay, no one is saying that Buffy did not go through horrible things. But again, it's like when your mom is like, finish your food because there's kids starving in Africa. Like, someone else's pain is not going to negate my own. I don't want to eat the damn vegetables. I'm not going to eat the damn vegetables. But yeah, like, that's how I feel about Dawn. Like, just because Buffy also went through some, if not worse, shit. Although, I would say, just to counter that, I don't think Buffy's mom died when she was like 15 or 14. But anyway, I think Dawn went through a lot in her time on the show, her short time on the show. She was only there from seasons 5 to 7, since she didn't even quite literally exist in this universe before then. And in that short time, she went through so much. And I love her storyline in season 6, where she feels neglected and ignored, so she starts shoplifting. Yeah, it's silly and it's a little ridiculous, but it ties into the themes, I guess, of season 6 as a whole. And I love that we see her lash out and act out and have tantrums and get an attitude like a teenager would. I think it's nice when teenagers are portrayed accurately, especially like, imagine if your mom died and then all of a sudden you were left with your sister, who now no longer really wants to make any time for you because she's too busy, fairly enough, saving the world, but she doesn't want to make any time for you. And so you literally have no one to hang out with or talk to, like, at all. And then on top of that, your sister also wants to try to act like your mom, even though she's not your mom, because your mom was fucking great and you literally never see your sister. Like, sorry, but I will always say that I think the hate campaign towards Dawn is just because people don't like unlikable girls. But I love unlikable girls. They're my bread and butter. The only time I truly didn't like Dawn was in Empty Places. And quite frankly, I didn't like anybody in that episode. So yeah, this is just a PSA to say, like, stop the Dawn train hate. She doesn't deserve it. And yeah, she's like Nickelback. I feel like people are forced to hate her because the fandom as a whole doesn't really like her. And I just could not relate less. I absolutely love her. And I think she is one of the best additions to Buffy in the later seasons. I think having her become Buffy's sister and like how they explain it leads into what makes season 5 so great, is their bond. And that's what completes Buffy's character arc in season 5, is Dawn ultimately. I just love it. And now we're nearing the end of this video because intermission is over. So now is where we get to the stuff that is genuinely, I saved the best for last and the worst for last. The first stuff I mentioned was just kind of all over the place, but this is the strong ones. And so hopefully I will not speak for as long as I probably want to yap for. Let's go. I want to start positive, and I also want to end positive. So I will start with a positive, end with a positive, and we're going to talk about all the shit in the middle. So number 1 is the best episode of Buffy to me, Once More with Feeling. The reason I think Once More with Feeling deserves its own little area here is just because ultimately it didn't feel right to just categorize it as an award deserving episode, because like, yeah, obviously, but it also just has a cultural impact that has only aged better with time. So Once More with Feeling, in case you're watching this video and you've gotten this far somehow and you don't know anything about Buffy, is the musical episode of Buffy. It happens in season 6, episode 7, I believe. It is the best episode of the show to me. But realistically, it's actually the second best episode, since number 1 is The Body. And what makes Once More with Feeling so good, and the reason it's aged so well, I'm going to explain. So in terms of just the show itself, it is done very well. When you do musical episodes in a television show, you need to be careful with how you introduce the musical elements in a way. And I then, of course, can only really compare it to the only other show that I have seen from start to finish in its entirety, and I actually love, and it's like not even a guilty pleasure love, I just love it and I refuse to have to explain myself, and that is Riverdale. Riverdale is known for its musical moments and its musical episodes, for better and for worse, predominantly worse. And the problem with Riverdale's specifically is they don't understand how musicals can propel plot forward. Sometimes they do. I think season 4's Riverdale musical episode is actually the best one. I could make a whole video about that one. But you need to use musicals ultimately to propel something forward. Glee, great example, uses songs as a way to get sometimes emotions that the characters are feeling but maybe don't want to verbalize. They get those feelings out that way, or they'll use songs to showcase progression in relationships or friendships or whatever, or rivalries, right? They do it really well. I love Glee forever. Might make a Glee episode one day, make a Glee video. That's a lot. Or you could just do like the cop out, you know, it was a dream and we were just singing just to sing, just because you want a damn musical episode, and I'll still respect that too, because I love a musical episode. But ultimately, the dream is to use musicals in the way that they're kind of meant to be, which is to propel a story forward and to tell a story within the songs, not just have a story and then take a brief intermission for 3 to 4 minutes to sing a song that has literally shit to do with the plot and then get back to the plot right after, which is unfortunately what Riverdale did a lot of the time, especially in its later musical episodes and just random musical moments throughout. But anyway, Buffy didn't do that though, and they actually even went one step further. So for the episode of Buffy, like I said, Joss Whedon took a lot of time to make that episode. I think it took him a couple of months from what I read, don't quote me on that, but I think it took him a couple of months because he really went all in with it. I highly doubt he was like writing every single song himself. I'm sure he had help, of course, from actual professionals, but he had help from professionals, and you can tell. And it's not just like professionals who do music, it's clearly professionals who must have some kind of love or background for musicals, specifically from different eras and different times and in different forms of media, because it was done so well. So you have songs that were originally written for Buffy, and therefore immediately they're going to be able to, you know, push the plot forward because they were written with the show in mind. They didn't just pick like a jukebox musical, like any random song off the radio, and think, okay, let's now tell a story. Instead, they made the story of the episode revolve around the songs, which is number one key, great decision. I love that. Plus, I just love when people make original songs, which actually reminds me, Riverdale actually in its last season did do this, and that's also probably one of Riverdale's best musical episodes. They actually did make original songs, and it was so well done. It's just always nice when you have songs that were made specifically for something instead of a jukebox musical. Like, those can be good. I love Moulin Rouge, but it's nice to have original songs for a piece of media as well. Okay, well, my camera died and now I've lost like an hour and the sun is starting to set a little bit, so we're gonna try to get through this a bit quicker. So I was on Once More with Feeling. Like I said, they created original songs, which was key and great. I think it's always better when they do that and when they're able to use the musical format to actually use it as what it's meant to be, not just musicals for the sake of musicals, although like I said, I do love Moulin Rouge. But in the case of Buffy, they just did it so smart, and the songs were genuinely really good, and they all kind of exist within different genres, which I also love. It's not just like they all sound the same or anything like that, and they were all very distinct. Like Anya and Xander's song was like very like show tuney, and then like Willow's and Tara's was like this very beautiful soft melody. Spike got like this kind of like, you know, rock sound, which I love. That's a freaking favorite song in that episode. So it was just really great. And then also just in terms of the context of the show, it made sense, A, why it happened. like how they explained it about there being a demon who's basically forcing them to do all of this, and then also as a result you have the potential of danger because that same demon could make you like dance yourself to death, is really well done. It's silly, but it's makes sense within the context of Buffy, in my opinion. And then just within the themes of the episode, like it fits so well with Buffy's final song, which I love, about how she needs to accept living. It's kind of what Spike tells her, you need to keep on living, you know, which ties into one of the big themes. And also just in terms of long-term consequences, you would think like, oh, it's the musical episode of my favorite show, I can skip it because it's just a musical episode. But really, if you skipped this episode, you would skip so much and you would miss so much, because this episode has the start of Buffy and Spike's relationship, the end of Willow and Tara's relationship, the first seeds of doubt in Anya and Xander's relationship, and also, what do we call it, kind of the beginning of Giles realizing like, yeah, he does need to leave, and that's what he's going to do for Buffy's sake, allegedly. So just a really great episode. I love musical episodes. I love this musical episode. And then just from outside the context of the show, the cultural impact, I know that Buffy was not the first show to do a musical episode, so I won't give it that credit, but it was definitely one of the most prominent first ones to do it. And it did, I think, completely change what a musical episode of television could look like. And I hate to say this because you're probably gonna think like I'm a loser who only watches 2 YouTubers, but you should go watch Sarah Zed's video on it. I literally have watched all her videos. All her takes are always correct. What can I say? She has the Beer Bad video, the Buffy season 6 video, which is great, and she has a video talking about musical episodes, specifically Riverdale, and she talks about why Buffy does it so brilliantly, where in other shows like that, you know, like Riverdale, do not. So just such a great episode. My biggest regret in life is that when I was in college, they released, I think it was like a 20th anniversary. No, I don't think it was 20th. No, it would have been 15. I have to remember I'm old. It was a 15th anniversary of the episode, and they released it on vinyl, and I didn't buy it because I was like, I'll get it one day. And I've tried to find it since, and it's very hard to find for an affordable price. So that's my biggest regret in life, I want you all to know. And now finally, I have to try to be brief because I don't want my camera to die again. I don't think I'll make it. The sun is truly about to be bygone. But I have to talk about the worst of the worst. It's 3 big ones, and I put them all together at the end because I think they all tie in together kind of. And I have to start with the one that I could probably talk the most about. I knew when I made the Buffy videos, I was going to look forward most to talking about this episode because I had a lot to say about it, and I still have a lot to say about it. So my first big spoiled milk, like I'm talking disgusting, like it's actually from like 2003, but for some reason you've just kept it around in the fridge because you don't want to clean it out or something. You want to keep it for nostalgic reasons. And that is season 6, episode 19, titled Seeing Red, which, funny enough, is how I feel talking about this episode. So there are 2 big moments in this episode that make it still very discussed to this day, and why I feel the need to discuss it now. I'm going to first talk about the one that just pisses me off the most, and then one that pisses me off just 0.1 less. So first, there is the Spike and Buffy scene, and this is where I will say, trigger warning, skip to the next chapter if you want, if you don't want discussions of like sexual assault or anything, because we do have to talk about it when we talk about Seeing Red, unfortunately. So just a fair warning now, skip to the next chapter. So Seeing Red, the Spike and Buffy scene, the infamous Spike and Buffy scene. So at that point in the season, Buffy had kind of called off the situationship, if you will, of sorts with Spike because she realized it was toxic and whatnot, and it was. I think it was meant to be toxic. That was kind of the whole point in the season 6 portrayal. I just like it because I have issues, but it was toxic. And despite that though, despite the fact that they didn't really work well together in terms of how she saw him and how he was kind of manipulating her and using her loneliness and vulnerability to have sex with her and have to be close to her, despite all of that, he was still inherently in love with her, despite not having a soul. And that was one of the big plot points, right? That was like literally kind of his entire character. So explain to me then why in season 6, episode 19, he decides to walk in to Buffy's shower when she just got out of the shower. I think she's going to shower. She didn't just get out. She is going to shower. He walks in and basically starts telling her that he loves her or whatever, and that he knows that she wants this, even though she like is clearly saying she doesn't. And in what is a very long, like prolonged, kind of silent mostly scene, he basically begins to sexually assault Buffy before she finally pulls him off. And he also at that moment then finally realizes like, oh no, I was wrong about the situation. I definitely read that room wrong. Cool. So this scene already pisses me off, just period, because I think it was a bit of a character assassination for Spike. Like, I don't think he was an angel or anything, but I don't think he was this horrendous either. And there was a lot of discussion about how Spike sees love and how he's talked about how he sees love as like passion, like full of passion, and quite frankly full of violence. You even see that in his first relationship pre-Buffy with I forget her name right now. I feel horrible. I don't have a single brain cell in my head right now. But his previous relationship when he's first introduced in the show with another vampire is also equally kind of like violent and full of passion. And that is what he sees as romantic. It's what he's been used to seeing as romantic, right? So then for Buffy to not have that same kind of view of love, I think, was like eye-opening for him. But that's where my problems with this episode and with this fucking specific storyline in general stem from, which is that this specific storyline was utilized for the sole purpose of propelling his character growth and finally giving him a reason to like go out, I guess, and like search for his soul or whatever, to get redemption in the eyes of like the people he loves, which would be Buffy. Meanwhile, from Buffy's POV, even within the episode scene, right, she doesn't even have time to process what has just happened to her, because immediately shit starts happening and like hitting the fan. And then in season 7, when she sees Spike again, she, I feel like, is not given any room to feel hate towards him or anger. Immediately she is put in a role of coddling him and making sure he's okay when he's quite literally like losing his mind from now having a soul after not having it for hundreds of years, and having to deal with the aftermath of all the people he's killed and all the horrible things that he's done to Buffy and just to others in general. And so having that horrible storyline just so that Buffy's feelings are completely negated, they don't matter, they actually do not matter in the storyline at all how she feels about anything, because she is there for Spike immediately again, which is an issue. I don't think that, like, if she wanted to forgive him down the line, sure, but she like doesn't even think about it. She just goes and helps him, forgives him. It's not a big deal to her, I guess. Her trauma is not a big deal to her, I guess. And it was only done for the purpose of propelling his character growth. You have female trauma ignored and utilized just for the sake of a male and his storyline and his growth. And I'm like, you can't be serious right now. Like, this should have probably been the first red flag and like shooting gun, or smoking gun is what I meant to say. This should have been the smoking gun as to the kind of person that Joss Whedon really is, because in what world, like, why would you do this? Quick editing note to say that I literally already said previously in this video that Joss Whedon barely had any involvement in season 6, and I do think the idea, like behind the sexual assault specifically, was a female writer's idea. So like when I say I put the blame on Joss Whedon, it's like, it's still his show. These are still his characters. I don't think that any writer, even if they got put in charge a lot in season 6 because he wasn't around, right? I don't think any writer would just be able to put a storyline into the show and have all this work go into it and him not approve of it. It still stands that it's Joss Whedon's fault. Or if you're gonna do it better, do it right. I don't know. it was so sloppily done, and it literally just like was so inconsequential for Buffy, even though it's such a dramatic thing. It just makes absolutely no sense, and I hate it with all my core. And it's actually a true story, the only scene I never rewatch. Whenever I do a rewatch, I will actually skip through this scene. I can watch what happens after, you know, but I cannot watch this scene. I can watch the body, even though it makes me cry, but I will not watch this scene. And yeah, I'm probably never going to see it ever again. And I think it's very telling that even James Marsters has he's infamously talked about how hard it was to film this scene, and how after this he decided he was never going to do anything like this ever again. And even he thought it was like weird for his character to do. It's weird. Which then leads into one of the worst things in this episode. No, I think the sexual assault was worse in my opinion, but this is equally pretty bad, and the implications overall of what it does is also pretty horrendous, and that is Tara's death scene at the end of scene Red. So here's a quick history lesson. I'm gonna try to make it quick because I'm gonna wrap it up, but I'm getting you the TV tropes definition of a little trope called bury your gays. This trope is the presentation of deaths of LGBT characters where these characters are nominally able to be viewed as more expendable than their heterosexual counterparts. And what I mean by that is that in this show, like, Angel dies, Buffy dies, Spike dies. To be fair, Spike within the context of the show doesn't come back. He only comes back in the comics. Spoilers. But all these people die, these heterosexuals, and they come back. Yet the only gay character who dies in the show dies for good. And to be fair, I did hear that Joss Whedon did want to bring Amber Benson back as a ghost or something. He still wouldn't have been alive, just as a ghost. But Amber Benson herself said that she thought it would be more impactful if she didn't come back, because then it's like a real permanent death. And I actually do agree with her sentiment in that respect. I do think it's more impactful when there is a death and then you just really never see that person again, versus like what I mentioned earlier, where like I think season 2 would have been more impactful, the ending, if Angel had truly died or not come back for a while. So I agree with her there. But the bury your gays trope, unfortunately Tara's death feeds right into this, whether they intended that or not. And I don't think they're like homophobic. I don't think people writing that episode are like homophobic, you know, and anything of the sort. But unfortunately, to continue my history lesson, so starting in 1934 and lasting until 1968, there was this infamous Hollywood code called the Hays Code, which basically banned anything that the president at the time, I believe he was the president, William Hays, he was the president of like the motion picture art department, you know, like people making the films. And he basically made this code to counteract immoral things being shown in film, and that included like killing, cursing, drinking, you know, all that stuff, slurs. And as a result, homophobia, homosexuals were also obviously banned, because that was seen as a perversion, because it was 1934. So that lasted for a really long time, but filmmakers weren't like super in love with the Hays Code. They kind of hated it for the most part. I would too. I think it like stifles your creativity and it bars you from what you can show and not show in like your own film. Like, that's fucking stupid. And so they still tried to show gay characters, especially because like Hollywood's pretty damn gay. It's not like that's a recent development. So they still tried to show gay characters, but they could really only do it of 2 ways. Number one was making them villains, which is why there's a whole history about, you know, villains being very easily liked by and accepted by gay communities, because you can identify yourself with villains, of course, when the very same villains were usually queer-coded themselves, because they kind of had to be. There's no other way. If you showed homosexuality, it had to be in a negative light. So they were villains, or you could have it, but it had to have a sad ending. Think Brokeback Mountain, you know, like it had to end with negative consequences, which usually ultimately ended up being death. So when you have shows doing that in a post-Hays Code era, like I said, I don't think they're doing it because they're implicitly homophobic, but it's more just like years and years and years, really decades of this ingrainment in our minds about, you know, gay people are expendable in a way, because they have been just suffering so much in film because they quite literally had to, right? So the Hays Code. And as a result, this just fed right into it, and it didn't need to. And I think that as the time has gone on, this trope has thankfully become so much more like rare in a way, because it's gotten more like backlash as the time has gone on. Like I remember, I don't watch the show, but I distinctly remember, because I'm like perpetually online, when the 100 killed off one of its lesbian characters in a very similar moment to Buffy. It was a stray gunshot, I believe. It was right after they had just gotten back together and had sex for the first time, or like just, you know, had sex in general, and then the character died, and there was immense backlash to the point where I think they vetoed it later and they actually brought the character back. Like, it's not inherently bad to kill a gay character, like a gay character. You don't have to keep them alive just because they're gay. But it's like, what are you trying to portray with this death? Like, how does it feed the plot? And that's where I go into what Joss Whedon said, where he said that Tara's death was necessary for Willow's development. And I'm sorry, but I don't quite frankly believe that. I don't think that that was needed to further Willow's development, in my humble opinion. She was already going off the deep end. I guess this allowed the ultimate deep end to happen, and she literally killed someone, which she's never gonna forget and she's never gonna be able to move past from. But I don't think you needed Tara's death to be so careless then. Like, literally just a stray gunshot, like, didn't even fucking matter. She wasn't even like the target. It was supposed to be Buffy. Like, I don't know, it just felt so disgusting and cheap, and I fucking hate that episode so much. One, because I love Tara, I don't want to see her dead. Two, because of the implications of the bury your gays trope. And then also just because right like 5 minutes before, Buffy gets sexually assaulted. Like, it's literally a horrendous episode. I hate this episode. It has not aged well. It has done everything but, actually. I think the more it's gone on, the more hate it probably gets, and the more hate it probably deserves, quite frankly. Which then leads us into spoiled milk, really bad, like disgusting, category 2, the creator. And I'm not talking that one. I'm talking Joss Whedon, okay? He was very well known, maybe not at the time that Buffy was made. I think Buffy shot him up in popularity, but he became like one of those showrunners and one of those directors who was a person, like a figure, even outside of his films. Like, he was well known, he was like a nerd god, he was a feminist ally. Like, I'm pretty sure he won awards for his feminism. He was one of those kind of guys, and lo and behold, he was actually one of the worst the entire time. Who would have guessed, right? Like, we officially, what happened is that in 2017 his ex-wife kind of came out, I think in an article, and accused him of basically being the complete opposite of the persona that he gives off, or tries to give off. She was basically like, that's fake as hell, don't trust it, it's phony. But at the end of the day, it's a disgruntled ex-wife, sure, whatever. Then in 2018, or I'm sorry, that's not true, in 2020, after the release of Justice League, which sucked and flopped anyway, everyone's always talking about the Snyder Cut as if that makes a single lick of difference. After Justice League and everything in 2020, the cast members, specifically I think Gal Gadot and I think one other person, I don't know his name, I'm sorry. I don't really know Justice League like that, I don't know DC like that. But they came out and said that Joss Whedon's behavior on set was like really gross and kind of like unprofessional. And he was just mean. He wasn't like a good person, and like at the end of the day, that's not a good look to have. And then of course after that, finally more people started coming out about their experiences that they'd had with Joss Whedon throughout the years, and one of them of high note was Charisma Carpenter, who played Cordelia, said that she always felt like he was unprofessional towards her in respect to how he treated her, especially on the set of Angel, more so than the set of Buffy. He basically fired her because she got pregnant. He used to mock her religious views, things like that. Super cool, super fun. He was just not a good guy, and truly the opposite of what he portrayed himself as. And that's why I'm telling you, like, it's no surprise to me that season 6 was mostly written by somebody else, because I think that Joss Whedon lacks enough self-awareness to realize that he's basically making a villain who's himself. He is the incel. He is the nerdy guy who realized that he suddenly had power and he was going to manipulate that power, and he did. And it's so unfortunate because it kind of puts like it kind of mars the show as a whole a little bit, because when you see it retrospectively, you have to just know that the person who made this is actually a horrible person who does not really stand for most of the things that he propagates within his own show. So in that same vein though, I actually really like what Sarah Michelle Gellar wrote in Instagram around the time that all the accusations were coming out, where she basically put her entire support behind the women, obviously, and she said that she would always be proud to have her name be associated with Buffy, but that she no longer wanted her name to be associated with Joss Whedon. And I think that's the best way to look at Buffy the Vampire Slayer. When I was younger, I used to have a big moral qualm with separating the art and the artist, but in a case like this, I simply have to. The art is old anyway. I'm sure they still get royalties from it, right? But the art is old, it's been made, it's still a great piece of media. It's just, I want to completely disconnect it from the person who made it, because he was just a horrible guy, and he had issues even within the set of Buffy. Like, I have seen many things, obviously I was not cognizant at the time, but I've seen many things about how him and Sarah did not really get along, they did not mesh, and of course naturally she was kind of seen as the issue potentially back in the day, because a lot of the other cast members liked Joss Whedon, they supported him, like they were his friend, and Sarah not so much. But I think it's like a That 70s Show kind of situation, a Topher Grace situation, where sometimes maybe the odd man out is the right one, because I think she just stood on business and she realized that he wasn't the best boss. He was kind of toxic. He created a pretty unsafe work environment at times, according to her, working long hours, not cutting for breaks. Like, it just wasn't a good time. So I think the best way to enjoy this show truly from here on out, like, just don't even think about the person who created it, because he is such a gigantic piece of shit. But he somehow created magnificent art that, however, would not have been created if also it weren't for everyone involved. So it's not like it's his sole responsibility and his sole life's work. It's also so many other people's, from the actors to the crew to everyone else. And now our last two. So we have one last fine wine and one last spoiled milk. I'm gonna start with the spoiled milk because, like I said, I wanted to end on a positive, and I have been hinting a few times in this video that I was gonna get back to this, and this is me getting back to this now. And I'm gonna stand on business when it comes to Xander Harris. So I have mentioned previously, I believe in my season 1 video, that Xander Harris is literally just a self-insert for the creator, Joss Whedon. Every writer loves to write about themselves low-key, and that's literally what he did with Xander. And in the beginning it worked to a degree, because I think Xander was still young enough, he was in high school, and he, for the most part, like, I don't think he was ever harmless, because if I were to make a list of all the things that Xander Harris has done that are should be like crimes against humanity and women, they would have started from season 1. But he was still young enough where I'm like, okay, sure. And he was funny. I still think Xander is pretty funny, but the problem is that Xander, despite liking him deep down in my soul, he is the most flawed character in this show. Like, people like to talk a lot about Willow, and I have my issues with Willow, especially everything like season 6 after. But Xander was like, it's actually always been there, and it's actually like, once you rewatch it especially, or if you watch it in like a new context, like if you haven't seen it in a while, watch it now, and like you're gonna see he's actually a big piece of shit. Like, he is, I read everything here. One, he is misogynistic, like misogynistic as hell. Like, again, should have been a clear sign of the kind of person that Joss Whedon was, that this was going to be his self-insert character, and his self-insert character just happens to be super anti-woman, basically, even though he actually loves women. Sure, very Warren of him. Xander is like, literally, he thinks and expects so much from the women around him. He thinks that they owe him everything. He thinks that if anything happens to them, he should actually be the first to know. And not even just that, they should actually ask for his permission before they even do anything, because his opinion is always right and he is never wrong. I spoke briefly in this video and extensively in my second season video about how I actually hated how he made the choice for Buffy to not save Angel by simply not telling her at all in the season 2 finale that Willow was working on a way to potentially restore his soul, so that she didn't have to kill him. She just had to buy time. so that she could do that. And Xander took it upon himself to take that decision away from Buffy and instead make that decision for her by simply not telling her that, so that she would be forced to kill him, because that's what ended up happening. And that's just really fucked up. I don't even like Angel like that. I kind of actually agreed with Xander in season 2 when he basically said we should kill Angel because soul or not, he's a fucking vampire who's killed people. I did agree with Xander. Xander's not always wrong, but he's not always right. And someone should tell him that more often. Because unfortunately, not only is he never really given consequences, like that was literally never had consequences for omitting the truth. Not lying, but omitting the truth from Buffy. He never got consequences for that. He actually never gets consequences for anything. Like ever. Like ever. The most consequences he's ever had is like a light scolding when he, in season 3, I believe it was, yeah, when he made all the women in town basically fall in love with him. A light scolding. Wow. That was actually really dangerous what you did. Buffy could have died. She was a fucking mouse rat and she could have died. Whatever. He never gets consequences for anything, and he really just always expects the most from the woman in his life. Like, he was genuinely upset with Anya after leaving her at the altar. He was upset with Anya for sleeping with Spike because it's Spike. He got upset with Buffy because she was sleeping with Spike and keeping it a secret from everyone. And like, how dare you? How dare you keep a secret from Xander? Because it's Xander. He's actually the most important guy in your life, and you love him, and you need to tell him everything you do before you do it to get permission. Because if he doesn't agree with it, then why are you doing it? You're wrong. I have a lot of feelings. He just really pisses me off, and it's like an overall thing with the guys on this show for the most part that I can repeat. Their actions have no consequences. I love Spike dearly. He's like the antithesis to Xander, but I have to say the same thing in his case. Why did he have no real consequences for trying to sexually assault Buffy? Someone tell me that. Someone riddle me that, please. Why he had absolutely no consequences for that. Sandra Harris is literally the worst, and it also probably doesn't help that the real life actor is also a piece of shit. I'm not gonna get into everything he's done. Coffee and Colts, this video is just me recommending you to watch other videos. Coffee and Colts has a really good video about Nicholas Brendan that I highly would recommend a watch. She also just recently made a really good video about Sarah Michelle and Freddie Prinze, so I would recommend that video as well. But he is absolutely a demonic person in real life, and unfortunately, I guess his character being absolutely demonic was just a warning sign for us. A warning sign that Nicholas Brendan isn't that good, a warning sign that Joss Whedon isn't that good, a sign that a lot of the men in this show fucking suck. Because Giles ends up sucking towards the end, Xander is Xander, Spike is still the love of my life, but he did try to sexually assault my protagonist. Angel is, I don't even want to discuss Angel. I cannot discuss Angel. I simply cannot. So yeah, the guys in this show suck. And Xander is like #1, and he's #1 especially because the narrative treats him as he can do no wrong, and on top of that even rewards him for his behavior a lot of the time, and still puts him as like the heart of the group. Like season 6 finale basically implies heavily he is the heart of the group and the reason that they stay balanced. Like, is he? I don't know. I think the older I've gotten, I still have a soft spot for Xander. I still think he's like inherently not a bad, horrible character, but my god, he kind of sucks. And the older I get, the more he sucks. Like, just simply put, he does. Our last fine wine before I end this video. The sun's truly almost gone, as you can probably tell by the lighting. So the best part about this show, always, no matter what, at the end of the day, you know, all the bad things aside and all the other good things aside, is Buffy Summers herself. Like, if you know anything about me at all, is that I don't really typically like protagonists. It's typically, I'm much more of a side character kind of person. I tend to always like the side couples more than the main couples. I like side characters more than main characters. That's not always the case, and there's actually another really popular teen show that I would really want to make a video about, so I'm not going to spoil it. Another show where the main character is the best character, and this is truly one of those rare cases, because yeah, she is the best character for all 7 seasons. Even when she's not right, she's still right in my eyes. And she's not inherently wrong the way her friends are sometimes. She's truly great, and we're just gonna talk about it. So she is a case of a strong female protagonist who was still allowed to be weak and vulnerable and human, but at the same time still very emotionally and physically strong, which I feel like you rarely get to see these days. I feel like we're seeing it a little bit more finally within books and within, you know, movies and TV shows, but I feel like creators nowadays and writers have a really skewed view of what we consider to be strong female protagonists and what real people who, like, I don't know, have personalities actually want out of strong female protagonist. We do not just want a protagonist who is going to be kicking ass, badass, super strong, has no weaknesses basically, and is like OP as hell. Like, I don't want that. I want some complexity. I want like a Katniss Everdeen, you know? And that's what we kind of get from Buffy, and she was truly one of the first to really break the mold completely. She broke so many molds. I mean, she was supposed to be from the very beginning a diversion of like the blonde dumb cheerleader, because she is a blonde cheerleader, god damn it, and she is also gonna kick some fucking ass and probably flip you over. Like, if you were to wrestle with Buffy, like if a guy on the wrestling team were to wrestle with Buffy, she'd win, hands down. Like, she can defend herself, she's badass as hell, she has immense strength given to her, but she's also still really weak in terms of her emotions sometimes, which she can let lead her, and she lets love completely ruin her sometimes, which I love when that happens, because yeah, I think there is a nice reality, I guess. Like, it's nice to see women being vulnerable, and that doesn't automatically mean they're like truly weak, because Buffy is still strong. At the end of the day, you would never see Buffy within the show and think that's a weak character. It's actually a really strong character, both figuratively and literally, but she still allows herself to be like really open when she wants to be, right? And I don't know, I just think it's so rare you get characters like Buffy where like she is a myriad of different things and they all mesh well together and blend well together and make sense and work. And I think that's in large part, like, yes, writing. I do think at the end of the day, Joss Whedon somehow made a phenomenal main character, but also Sarah like really acted her ass off and gave a level of charisma to that character that I don't think a lot of other actresses would have been able to do. And even today, I don't think a lot of actresses would be able to replicate what she did. I think there's a reason that she is still so beloved to this day, and they kind of talk about that in that Coffee and Colts video I mentioned about Sarah and Freddie, which I highly recommend. She is still so beloved to this day and adored by people because she just has that charisma, and she brought it into the character of Buffy. And I think it's why Buffy is most, I would say 8 out of 10 times, people's favorite character when they watch the show. She's my favorite character. Like I said, her, even when she's right, or even when she's wrong, she's right. And she is so absolutely amazing. Like, it's kind of crazy how you would think that with time, right, and the more we grow and learn and the more progressive we become as a society, allegedly, that we would get stronger female characters than this. And yet I think that we sometimes get weak, run-of-the-mill characters, and that's probably more just to do with the overall landscape of media consumption now. I mentioned it earlier when I was talking about the Netflix thing and how they make shows now. They don't care if the characters are complex because they're not expecting you to even be watching. They're expecting you to be scrolling on your phone, right? So I feel like there's less care put into making some characters like Buffy. So as a result, to me, I cannot think of too many other teen show characters that are as complex as her and as well written as she is, and well liked. She's so likable. It's actually crazy. She's so funny. Her delivery on lines, Sarah's delivery of some of the lines, hilarious. She is so good. And also, on an unserious note, she fucking slays every outfit. I cannot tell you how Buffy has actually been my fashion inspiration since, like, for years at least, for years. I literally have outfits in my head that I have planned around outfits that she has worn, because her outfits are so iconic to me from season 1 to season 7. Her style changes so much and she never misses. She absolutely never misses. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up because I look pretty dark right now and I want to just edit this video and get it out. It's going to be a pretty minimal editing quality video, which I love, so I can still do other stuff tonight besides just edit for days on end like I was doing in my last 2 videos. But yeah, hopefully I get around to doing another one of these videos for maybe another beloved show. I have a few options, a few shows that I really love. I could do like the OC. I love the OC, you don't understand. I could do Gilmore Girls because I could rant for hours about that show. Could do like Veronica Mars, Glee, so many different shows I could do this for. I don't know, I'll have to see which one I want to do, and I'll probably do like a fine wine spoiled milk for that. But I also have this other idea, like a little silly idea of some videos I want to do. I think as long as I stick to videos kind of like this, I think I should be fine. So hopefully I see you guys maybe in a few weeks, maybe in a few months, or knowing me notoriously, maybe I'll see you like in 2 years. We'll see. Toss toss. Bye.